All right. In this video, we are continuing with the work of a unit circle. But in this particular video, we're going to be dealing with the practical part, the calculations, right? So if this is your first video and you didn't watch the previous video, please go to the previous video. And why am I urging you to go back to the previous video? So that you can understand these inequalities. Because on the previous video, I explained the inequalities and how they work. However, if you already understand about the inequalities, then you don't have to go to the previous video. Just stick out and then let's deal with these three questions. All right. So what are we given? In scenario 1, we are told that if sin theta is equals to 3 over 5. What happens when we are told that sin theta is equals to 3 over 5? Remember, we have got our SOHCAHTOA. And if it's sin, it means we have got opposite over hypotenuse. Meaning to say that this 3 over 5, it means that our opposite is 3. And our hypotenuse is 5. That's what we are being told here. Now, so if sin theta is equals to 3 over 5, opposite and hypotenuse, and 0 degrees, right, actually, and theta is more than or equal to 0 degrees, but theta is less than or equal to 90 degrees. This which we have here, this is what we call a restriction. A what? A restriction. What is the job of the restriction? The job of a restriction is to tell you where are you going to be working from. So we've been told that here 0 degrees is included, 90 degrees is included. So we are going to work. Where do we find 0 and 90 degrees? This is where we find our 0. This is where we find our 90 degrees. So we're going to be working in quadrant number 1, right? Meaning to say that this opposite and the hypotenuse which have been given, this is the angle theta that they are talking about, which means that our opposite here is 3 and our hypotenuse is 5. That's what we have been told. We're told what sin theta is. We were told where to work by this restriction. That's why I now wrote that opposite is 3 and hypotenuse is 5. Now, what do they say? They say determined by means of a diagram. That's why you saw I drew a diagram. Now, what do they want us to do? Now, the first question is saying cos squared theta. Cos squared theta. We must determine the value of cos squared theta. Now, let's go to the trig ratios of cos. If we're at cos, it says adjacent and hypotenuse. Now, let's come to this diagram, the values which were given. We were given opposite, we were given what? Hypotenuse. Do we have adjacent? The answer is no. We do not have this adjacent. So what should we do? The first order of business, in order for us to end up getting to this answer, we must use the Pythagoras theorem. Why are we going to use the Pythagoras theorem? To find the value of the adjacent. Once we have found the value of the adjacent, then we can be able to determine what is our cos squared theta. So this is very simple. On the side here, now I'm going to what? I'm going to remind you that we were not given any points. There was no letter A, B, or C. So if we are dealing with our Pythagoras theorem, we say that hypotenuse squared is equal to opposite squared plus adjacent squared. This is the Pythagorean theorem. So our hypotenuse is 5. So we write that 5 squared is equals to. Our opposite was 3. So we write 3 squared. But we do not know our adjacent. So we say adjacent squared. Please note, some of the students, they make mistakes whereby they end up losing mistakes. On the previous 2 videos, two videos before this one, I said that the x-axis, they use letter X. On the y-axis, they use letter Y. And this radius, they use letter R. But if you are not provided those letters by the examiner, please do not write r squared is equals to x squared plus y squared. You will be penalized. You will lose your marks. Because do not write what you are not given. In this scenario, you were not given any of those letters. So stick to the business of writing what? This adjacent squared is acceptable. ADJ is the shortcut for adjacent. You won't be penalized. Now, 5 squared, what is 5 squared? 25, which is equals to 3 squared is equal to 9 plus adjacent squared. Now, what am I going to do? I'm going to transpose this 9 because these two are like terms. So now we say 25 minus 9, which is equals to adjacent squared. And when we say 25 minus 9, what do we get? We get 16. So here we have got 16 is equals to adjacent squared. Now, what do we want? We do not want adjacent squared, we just want adjacent. So in order for us to get rid of this squared, we use what? We use the square root. And this side we also use a square root. But remember, in algebra we were told that how can you get this positive? You can get a positive via two different ways. Negative multiplied by a negative, which will give you a positive sign, or positive multiplied by a positive, which will give you a positive sign. But in here, remember from the previous video, we were saying that in certain quadrants here, remember, we said that in this quadrant here, quadrant 1, your x-axis is positive. But in quadrant 2, your x-axis is negative, right? Or your opposite here in this quadrant and that quadrant, they are positive. But in quadrant 3 and 4, your opposite is negative and negative. So before you write your final answer here, when you're at this stage whereby you're saying adjacent squared is equals to square root of adjacent squared is equals to square root of 16, you come here and you write plus or minus. Why are we putting a plus or minus? Because we have to check in the quadrant that the adjacent we're dealing with, is the adjacent positive or negative? If we come to this quadrant 1 where we are dealing with, our adjacent is positive. So the answer that we're going to write now, we will now say, therefore, our adjacent is equal to 4. We have to consult this Cartesian plane to know in the quadrant in which what, to know whether the side that they're asking is positive or negative. Now that we have found that our adjacent is equals to 4, it means that what do we have? We have opposite, which is equals to 3. We have adjacent, which is equals to 4. We have got hypotenuse, which is equals to 5. The question was saying, what is cos squared theta, which is equals to? We know that it's adjacent over hypotenuse. What is our adjacent? 4. So we say 4 over. Our hypotenuse is 5. 4 over 5. But they say it's squared, meaning to say that here we must now say squared. Now we are using our algebra. Now, if there's a squared, we now say the numerator, 4 to the power 1, these two, or you just go to your calculator. Then 4 squared gives you 16 over 5 squared gives you 25. So this is your final answer. Your cos squared theta is equal to 16 over 25. We are done. The second question, which was B here, it was asking what is 2 tan theta? What is 2 tan theta? So let's write it here. The question is 2 tan theta. Now, remember this 2, it multiplies with the tan theta. So we are now going to say 2 multiplied by, what is your tan theta? Remember your tan theta is equals to opposite over adjacent. Opposite over adjacent. What is our opposite? Our opposite is 3. What is our adjacent? 4. So we've got 2 multiplied by 3 over 4. And this question, in most cases, they'll say without the use of a calculator. Without the use of a calculator. That's why you don't see me using a calculator. Now I've got 2 multiplied by 3 over 4. But remember this 2, which is a natural number, I can change it to become an improper fraction and say over 1 like this. Right? Now, if I check these 2, they've got a common factor, which is 2. So I say 2 into 2, it's 1. 2 into 4, it's 2. Now I say is equals to, right? 1 multiplied by 3, it gives me 3 over 1 multiplied by 2, it gives me 2. So my 3 over 2 is my final answer here. And I am done with the first 2 questions. I'm done. Simple. As easy as eating pap. Right? Okay. Let's go to question 2. What was question 2 saying? Question 2 said, if 5 cos A plus 3 is equal to 0. Here there's the problem. What is it that we're supposed to do? We do not know the values. So what do we need to do? This question requires that we rearrange our values first before we go any further, right? So On the side, I'm now going to show you how we are going to rearrange, right? So let's come here and we write, what do we have? 5 cos A, 5 cos angle A plus 3 is equal to 0. When we are going to rearrange, it's written positive, and this positive 3 and 0, they are like terms. So now we write 5 cos angle A is equals to, when we transpose it, it becomes a negative. Meaning to say that this negative 3 is our adjacent, right? Now, this 5 is multiplying with this angle. Now, why am I talking about the fact that it multiplies? Because we have been taught since primary that the opposite of multiplication is division. So, in order for us to get rid of this 5 from this part, we have to now say divided by 5. And what we have done on the left-hand side, we should do it on the right-hand side. 5 into 5, it's 1. So, our equation now reads cos angle A is equals to negative 3 over 5. Meaning to say that this 5 is our hypotenuse. Now observe, what does this negative mean? It means that our angle A is a negative angle. This is a negative angle, which means that the quadrant where this terminal arm lies, it's a negative angle. But let's continue with the question, right? Remember, the question, it gives us a what? A restriction. So if we come here, when we continue, we have determined here that if 5 cos A plus 3 is equals to 0, and here's our restriction. We are A is more than 180 degrees, but the 180 degrees is not included, and A is less than 360. 360 is not included. What does it mean on our Cartesian plane? Let's come back again here on our unit circle. What we have been told is that where we are starting to work from, it's 180. This is where 180 is. Even though 180 is not part of our solutions. And till we reach here, 360, which is here. So we are in these two quadrants. That's where we are going to work from. But remember the course which we got. We got a course which was saying cos angle A is equals to negative 3 over 5. Now, this negative 3 over 5 was giving us a hint as to where is the angle lying. Remember, we said that here all angles were positive from the previous video. Here we said sine was positive. Here we said tan is positive. Here we said cos is positive. Meaning to say that if they've said that between these two choices, that's where our cos is found. But here we found that the cos was negative. We cannot use this quadrant. Why? Because the cos is positive here. How do you test it? Test any number which is any degrees between 270 and 360. Let's do it quickly. If I come here and I say cos 300 degrees, the value which I'm getting is a positive half. And here I'm having a cos and angle which has got a negative. So I cannot work in this. This restriction has guided me that I'm working from quadrant number 3. Now that I know the quadrant which I'm working from, I now say this is cos angle A. I come and say that this is angle A. And this negative 3 is the adjacent, meaning to say that this is where I've got a negative 3. And the hypotenuse is 5. So what I don't have is the opposite, but I know also that my opposite is going to be a negative answer. My opposite is to be a negative answer. But let's go to the first question. The first question is now saying tan squared A. That's what we need to look for. They said determine by means of a diagram. That's why there is a diagram here. Tan squared A, right? Now, if we go to tan, what does it say? Tan angle A is equals to opposite over adjacent. We just realized we were given two, adjacent and hypotenuse. We don't have the value of the opposite, which means we are going to use what? We are going to use the Pythagoras theorem to find the opposite side, right? We have the hypotenuse, we have the adjacent. Now, what are we going to do? Now we are going to say that our hypotenuse is 5. So we've got 5 squared here is equal to our opposite, we do not know. So we write opposite squared here, plus our what? Adjacent, it's negative 3. So we open the bracket and we say negative 3. We close the bracket, we say squared. Now, when I say 5 squared, it gives me what? It gives me 25. which is equals to opposite squared. Now the negative 3 that I have inside, right, if it's inside the bracket, it's negative 3 and negative 3, which gives me a negative multiplied by a negative, it gives me a positive. So 3 by 3 is now positive 9. So I've got a positive 9 here. What am I going to do? I'm looking for opposite. I transpose this. So I've got 25 minus 9, which is equals to opposite squared. And 25 minus 9 gives me 16. So I've got 16, which is equals to opposite squared. I want to get rid of this squared. I say square root of. So I say square root of and I say square root of. But saying square root of is not enough. I have to say plus or minus. Why? Because I have to determine whether the opposite is positive or negative. Let's look at the diagram where in quadrant 3 we said here our opposite is negative, which means we come here and we say that therefore our opposite is going to be a negative, and square root of 16 gives us what? 4. It is opposite is equals to negative 4, because the quadrant where the opposite is lying, the cos is a negative angle. So here we're having this negative 4 as our opposite. Right? Now we can start to work with the question that was provided. What was the question saying? We must determine tan squared angle A. So what do we do then? Now we say that for our tan, which is opposite, we now say tan squared angle A is equals to our opposite. We open the bracket, negative 4, over our adjacent. Where is our adjacent? Our adjacent is this negative 3. So I've got negative 3 here, and it is squared. Now a negative divided by negative, it gives us a positive, right? So we say therefore our tan squared angle A is equals to 4 squared is 16 over 3 squared is 9. This is our final answer here. So we've got 16 over 9. Even if you open your calculator and you press this to confirm, it will give you 16 over 9. And just like that, we are done with the first question, which was A. The second question for this particular quadrant, it was now saying we were provided with what? We were provided with sin angle A over cos angle A. I'm just going to erase this part so that we can work, right? But we mustn't forget the values that we got. We mustn't forget our values. What were the values for this question? Our hypotenuse was equal to positive 5. Our opposite, we got a negative 4. Our adjacent, we were provided with a negative 3. And the question is saying sin theta divided by, no, actually it's sin angle A divided by cos angle A. So when we are dealing with sin, it's opposite over adjacent. What is our opposite? Negative 4 over hypotenuse positive 5. Now this is saying divide. I'm not going to use this division here because it will only bring you confusion. I'm going to use the alternative division, so I use this sign, right? And then it says cos alpha. Cos is equals to what? Adjacent over hypotenuse. Our adjacent is negative 3. So we've got negative 3 here over hypotenuse is 5. So here now there is a division sign, which means that we have got the KCF method. KCF method. K stands for keep the fraction, C stands for change the sign, and F stands for flip the fraction. So which fraction are we keeping? We're keeping the negative 4 over 5 as is. What are we changing? We're changing this sign, the division, to the opposite of division, which is multiplication. We are flipping this, which gives us a negative here. The numerator is now the denominator, and the denominator is now the numerator, which looks like this. Now, if we're to move forward, what do we identify? We've got a 5 and a 5, and these two, they've got a common factor, which is 5. Right? Here, There is nothing. So now we say negative multiplied by negative, which gives us a positive. And 4 multiplied by 1, it gives us 4. Over 1 multiplied by 3, it gives us 3. And just like that, we are done with the question. 4 over 3 is our answer. Sorry. 4 over 3. This is our answer. Simple and straightforward. Now we're going to go to the last question. What was the last question saying? The last question is simply stating that if 4 tan b minus 3 is equal to 0, we need to rearrange. And when we are rearranging, let's start by rearranging and then we will continue. So, we are told that we have got 4 tan b, 4 tan angle b minus 3 is equal to 0. We need to rearrange. So here we write 4 tan angle b is equal to, we transpose, it's now a positive. Now, what do? We need, this means that tan, remember, it's opposite over adjacent. So our 3 is a positive. Now we divide by 4, meaning to say that this 4 is a positive adjacent. In other words, this divided by that, we are now left with tan angle b is equal to 3 over 4. In other words, where this tan, the angle of tan is lying, this angle is what? This angle is positive. That's what this rearrangement is telling us. The tan is positive. Let's go to the restriction. Let's continue with the question. When we continue with the question, we are told, if 4 tan b minus 3 is equals to 0 and your cos angle b is less than 0, we are looking for where your tan is positive but your cos is negative. This is telling us less than 0, it means negative. Now remember, your tan, where is it positive? Your tan is positive in quadrant 1 and your tan is positive in quadrant 3. This is where tan is positive. For those who are lost, please go to the previous videos. I explained how we got Trig ratio, how the quadrants are positive or negative. So now, in this quadrant where tan is positive, our cos in this quadrant is negative. How is it negative? Because remember, cos is what? Adjacent. Where is our adjacent? There is our adjacent. If we're using the previous example, our adjacent here was a negative 3 and over hypotenuse. And if we are to say negative 3 over 5, a negative divided by a positive, it's a negative. So this is where the cos is less than 0. So we are working with quadrant number 3. So what are we now going to do? But we have been told that it's positive, right? Check. Here. Why is it here that it's written that tan b is equals to, opposite is 3 over 4? Because remember, if here this is a negative 3 and a negative 4, when we have got a negative divided by a positive, a negative and a negative, when they divide, they provide you with a positive. That is why here it's written as a positive, even though when you find the values, they are negative here, right? So, if we go to the questions which are given here, they want what? They want sin. And sin uses what? Opposite over hypotenuse. And we were not provided with the hypotenuse here. So we have to calculate for the hypotenuse because we've got opposite and we've got adjacent and opposite. So first step, always it's about Pythagoras theorem. Even if when you know the answer, that here it's going to be 5. But if you're in an examination, do that Pythagoras theorem so that you get your full marks, right? So we're going to do that Pythagoras theorem and say that we do not know the value of hypotenuse, but we know that the value of the opposite is negative 4. We say squared in brackets plus the adjacent is negative 3 squared. Hypotenuse squared. So we say hypotenuse squared is equals to, this gives you 16 plus this gives you a positive 9. And 16 plus 9 is equals to 25. But if it's hypotenuse, there is no need for you to come and write plus or minus when you say square root of hypotenuse. Why? Because like I said in the previous video, hypotenuse is a radius and radius is a distance. So hypotenuse is always going to be positive. So therefore our hypotenuse is equals to square root of 25 is what? Is 5. There's no need for me to refer to the diagram because I know that my hypotenuse is always going to be positive. Now, what is the question that is given? The question which is given says, open bracket, we have got sin angle beta, plus cos angle B, close bracket, squared. What is sin angle B? It's opposite over hypotenuse. So we open the bracket and we say opposite. What is the value of opposite? Is 3. Our value of opposite was negative 3 over the value of hypotenuse is 5 plus the value of cos. What do we have? Adjacent, what did we get? I'm making a mistake here because our opposite, let me refer to the diagram. This is angle B. The opposite is negative 4. The adjacent is negative 3. So if I'm to come and I talk about sin here, the opposite is negative 4 over the hypotenuse, which is 5, plus the cos adjacent is negative 3 over the hypotenuse, which is 5. And we have been told that this is to be squared. Now we are using our board mass, which says that we must start with the brackets and after that we must go to orders. It's not off. This all stands for orders, meaning exponents. So what am I going to do first? I've got identical denominator, so I say equal to and I write the 5 and then I say over. When I say plus and minus, it gives me a minus. So in other words, I've got a negative 4 and a negative 3, which gives me negative 7. Then now I say brackets squared. Now, if I say negative 7 squared with the brackets, the answer I get is a positive 49 over. And then 5 squared, it gives me 25. And this is the final answer for sin, open bracket, sin B plus cos B, close bracket, squared. 49 over 25 is the answer, right? That was the first question. The second question, what did it say? The second question simply stated that 25 here, open bracket, sin B minus cos B, close bracket, squared. So what are we going to do? Here, where there is a positive, we are removing this, we erase, we place a negative. The squared is still part of it, but outside 25 is multiplying with the value that we will find inside. So what do? We now erase here. Oh, actually, I don't have to erase everything. I just have to erase this part. Why? Here, we place a negative, right? So I've got a negative and a negative, and here I place a 25. So now I say is equals to 25, and then I say, open bracket, the negative 4 over 5, I still keep it. What am I going to do first? Now I'm going to say this negative multiplied by negative, it provides me with a positive. So the sign changes, it becomes 3 over 5 squared like that. Now, the denominator is still the same, so now I've got what? I'm now going to say that I've got 25, and then when I say the denominators are identical, so I write the denominator 5. And negative 4 plus 3, it gives me a negative 1. So I've got this negative fifth, which is squared. Remember, I must start with the opposite before I multiply, because the board mass says I must start with the orders or the exponents. So negative 1 squared, if I place this, I'm now going to have a 25 over 1 multiplied by And then when I say negative 1 squared, it gives me a positive 1 over 5 squared. It gives me a 25. And now observe these two, they are identical and they are a common factor, both of them. So I've got 1 here, and 1 multiplied by 1 is equals to 1. And 1 multiplied by 1 here, it's 1. So my final answer is equals to 1. And just like that, I have answered, right? So in your examination, they will say, do this without the use of a calculator. Understanding everything that I've taught you so far about trigonometry, it makes it easier for you to answer such questions. And these are what we call level 4 questions. Level 4 questions have got what? High marks. So you find that these questions, they've got upwards of 4 marks, these questions. So understanding this, it helps you, right? Now, on the next video, we're going to deal with what are called reciprocal ratios. Reciprocal ratios. On the section of our trig equations, that is the last one. Then, next term, you'll be now dealing with what are called trig functions. So, reciprocal ratios is the next topic. After the reciprocal ratios, then we are going to learn about Euclidean. But please do join us on the next lesson where when we talk about reciprocal ratios, I will explain what are reciprocal ratios. I will also give you practical examples of how to utilize those reciprocal ratios. At this point in time, I would like to say that if this video is helpful to you, please consider subscribing. And when you've subscribed, please do share with what? Your loved ones. Ask them to subscribe as well so that they can what? They can also be helped, right? Also, like this video so that the people that you do not know who are seeking assistance, the way that you are seeking assistance, YouTube can recommend to them this video, right? Also, share this video so that some of your classmates or some of your loved ones, they can get help. They can hear it from the horse's mouth. And last but not least, I do welcome your comments. So if there is something that you didn't understand or somewhere where you would like me to repeat an explanation, please put it in the comment section. If you'd like to compliment me, no human being has never avoided or has ever denied to be flattered. Till we meet next time, be safe. Thank you.